Hey, well, welcome. Welcome to the Polar Vortex. Brent's in Chicago, I'm in Toronto, and we're both freezing our buns off. But here we are, and we are going to deliver to you today the top 10 movies of 2018, the best and the worst. And are these according to you, Brent, or according to...
According to me.
Oh,
yes.
According to you. Okay, that's great, because I'm going to give some of my top 10 too then. Not sure I totally agree with all of yours. But if you agree or don't agree, join in the conversation. I'm going to be looking for you here on Facebook. And if you do enjoy it, please, please, right down below, go and hit the like button, hit the wow face button. That gives our exposure, a lot more exposure through Facebook, and we really appreciate that. And I hope that you are staying warm today, because I'm trying to. Are you trying to, Brent?
I'm trying to, yes.
Not easy. It's not easy.
Anyway, not when you have a wind chill of minus 49 Fahrenheit. No,
yeah,
that's
exactly. Exactly. It's really cold. I was watching photos of the boat in Chicago breaking up the ice on the river. What river is that?
Oh, that's the Chicago River.
The Chicago River. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Anyway,
well, we get used to it here, so.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, here too. I mean, it's freezing cold, but you don't get to see Brent, because Brent he's like that guy on what was that show? On the Handyman show with. I never get to actually see his face, but you get to hear him. I am going to show our first. Let me see. Is this the best one? I'm going to show you our first movie poster, and we can get started. If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yes, I should know too. Also, that in this list, I'm going to be counting down from 10 to 1.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be like a real radio countdown.
Ooh, okay. So 10. This is like the best of the worst of the best.
This is the best.
Okay.
Number 10 is If Beale Street Could Talk, which is the first film adaptation of a James Baldwin novel into English. It was directed by Barry Jenkins, who made Moonlight, the winner of the Oscar for Best Picture a couple of years ago. And this tells the story of a young man who is wrongly accused of a crime in Harlem in the 1970s, and the efforts conducted by his family, and particularly his wife-to-be, to help get him out of jail. And it's beautifully filmed. It has some wonderful performances in it. Very touching. I like the fact that it really is very faithful to trying to show the rich character development that Baldwin was known for in writing his books. Mm-hmm. Really very touching, at times infuriating, because you see both the spirit of community that's going through these people, as well as the love that binds them, but you also see the ugly prejudice that's against them from people who are racist and so forth. So
yeah,
it's a really wonderful film. I don't think it's quite on the same level as Moonlight was from a couple of years ago, but it's certainly a very good follow-up to that entry.
I really loved this movie. I forgot to share that screen. That's why it's not showing. I'm showing it on my computer, but I haven't been showing it to you. Hang on a sec, guys. I'm going to share this screen with you then, because you didn't get to see it. And all you're seeing is my nodding head. I can't believe it. Okay. If Beale Street Could Talk. I loved this film. I really did. And I got to see it in a little art house just above a bookstore. And I think they only show movies of books. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the characters are so sweet and just so beautiful in this movie. The people that you've recognized from other movies and shows, but wow, the performances were extraordinary. I really thought that they were really cool. And the young girl, what's her name?
Kiki Lane.
Yeah, she was great. She was really great. She just had this beautiful innocence and not to her, just it was really cool. Really great movie. Really loved it a lot. And it does show, kind of the ugly truth of the society and the racism, and how unfortunate it is for them to have been, even I don't even want to say in that time, because I think even today it's.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, this is a movie that in many ways is just as pertinent now as it is for the time period that it depicts.
Yeah, I agree. Oh. but still a very worthwhile effort, and I'm going to agree with you on that one.
Yes.
So good. Okay. Let me see here. We're still sharing my screen, so I'm going to go to Tom Cruise in
Okay, so
Mission Impossible
yeah,
Fallout.
number 9, we have Mission Impossible Fallout. I was really blown away by this movie. I thought it was the best action adventure film to come out in 2018. A lot of times when franchises get into, the fourth or fifth iteration of their films, they start to lose something. But I think in many ways, this probably was the best of the bunch. It is just such a nonstop thrill ride from start to finish. And it's also really refreshing to see a film that's showing action adventure where things are taking place involving people doing actual stunts, not relying on CGI to
Yes.
carry the story. I mean, Tom Cruise does all his own stunts in this movie. He even broke his ankle on one of them, as I understand.
Yeah, he likes to do his own stunts.
Yeah. But this was a great film. I really enjoyed it. It's not something that would necessarily typically fall into the movies with meaning category because it's really just pure entertainment more than anything else. But it's great pure entertainment. I mean,
It is, and it was nice to see Michelle Monaghan back in it. It was kind of nice to see, some old faces come back. And but Mission Unstoppable, or Impossible, they're always really good movies. They really are. Yeah, he's I don't know. He's the one thing about Cruise, he can take that movie and shine.
Yeah, and the other thing I liked about this too is the fact that you were watching his character, you weren't watching Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I mean, he tends to be rather larger than life in so many of the things that he does, and you end up seeing him instead of seeing his character. But in this case, you really saw the character.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. I'm going to give you that one for fun movies. Well, let me see what would be comparable to that. Nothing.
Well, I mean,
well, actually, I have Sicario because I loved Sicario.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I would say it's very, very much on par with that.
Yeah,
I have to. List. I really think that it was better than a lot of the other action adventure movies that got more acclaim last year. I mean, I preferred this, for example, to Black Panther. I preferred it to Avengers. I mean,
yeah,
those films really got all the attention, but I thought Mission Impossible really was the one that brought home the bacon for viewers.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one. Okay, where's my share? Hold on, I'm going all over the place. Okay, let's go back to our sharing our screen. Oh, here we go. And I'm gonna share that screen. You guys think I'm out of it today? I am kind of out of it today for some reason. Okay, Ben is back.
Okay, number 8, we have Ben is Back, which is a very underrated film that stars Julia Roberts and Lucas Hedges. Tells the story of a teen who is going through drug rehab and goes to visit his family for a Christmas break. And even though theoretically it should be nice for him to have the homecoming, in many ways it ends up dredging up a lot of old ghosts. Mm-hmm. And he ends up finding some people from his past coming back trying to lure him back into the life that he was in. And in the course of all of that unfolding, you find out things about his past that even members of his own family weren't aware of, that he really was doing a lot of really nasty things that they had no indication of. They just knew he was in trouble with drugs, but they didn't know to the extent that he was going to keep up his habit and so forth. Features positively stunning performances by Julia Roberts and Lucas Hedges. I'm really surprised that neither of them has gotten recognition for these performances. Mm-hmm. Just wonderful jobs. It's also interesting in the fact that this is a movie that combines both a family drama with a crime story, which is a rather unusual fusion to try and put together and to do it well, but this film pulls it off quite effectively. So this one will definitely tug at the heartstrings, and it will also cause your jaw to drop on a number of occasions. So quite a range of emotions and feelings that are going to come out of this one.
Well, I'm going to say I'm going to put The Mule there because I love The Mule. And talk about crime show. Crime and family put together, as you say. But I love that movie. There was something very touching and poignant about Clint Eastwood in that movie.
Yeah, that was a really good film, I have to admit. I mean, one of the problems with coming up with a list of a top 10 is you're only restricted to 10.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But it was, I think, probably one of the best films he's done in years.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I hope people you go out and see all of these movies, or wait for them to come to Netflix or whatever, because they're all so great. Just nothing. You can't really say anything bad about these movies. Okay, let me go back and find my screen. Share some more with you. You guys are so lucky. You're so lucky I'm on the ball today. Not. Okay, we are going down to 8th grade. Now, I didn't see 8th grade. I don't really know anything about 8th grade.
This movie came out during the summer. It was in the midst of, when you're seeing a lot of the big action adventure movies and you're seeing a lot of the summertime animated movies and so forth. It was a little independent comedy. It was directed by Bo Burnham. I believe it was his first film. This tells the story of a 13-year-old girl who is leaving 8th grade and getting ready to start high school, and all of the trials and tribulations that someone that age has to go through. A lot of us who are older probably might look back on that age and say, it's really unfortunate that, she blows all these things out of proportion. But when you're that age,
you do.
These are huge issues.
Yep.
And newcomer Elsie Fisher just absolutely nails the part of a 13-year-old being a 13-year-old. I mean, you see the things that she has to go through in terms of, being accepted and fitting in, and starting out doing her initial interest in dating boys, and all these things that we might kind of look back on as being sort of silly now, but at that time are really rather traumatic for someone to go through.
Very traumatic.
The other thing that comes through with this film too is the fact that since it's set in the present day, you see things that kids that age have to go through that we never had to. Things like going through active shooter drills in the schools.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are considerations that we never had to deal with when we were that age.
No.
But that is part of everyday life for kids that age now. So you see a really interesting mix of stuff in terms of what she's going through, kind of the universal things that people that age go through, but also some of the contemporary challenges that they face.
But they're also more advanced in grade 8 than we were. I mean, they are really, I remember, when my son was I had twins. So when the twins hit grade 8, my daughter came to me and said, Alex is behind the bleachers and he's getting the, the rainbow or whatever. I'm like, what? Like, this was so advanced for, kids that age. And I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, they're not supposed to be thinking about that stuff yet. And yet they are,
The other thing that was kind of interesting too is that this was Elsie Fisher's first movie role. Oh. And right after, I guess, she finished filming it, she was getting ready to go into high school herself. And she was auditioning for her high school drama club's production, and she got turned down.
Oh my gosh.
And
oh my gosh.
Yet at the same time, after having made this movie, she went on to get a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a
Go
Comedy.
Figure, eh? Go figure.
So I guess there is some poetic justice involved there.
Oh, I just keeps going on. This next movie, A Private War. Now, there is nobody I love more than Rosamund Pike. I just love her. Like, man, she can be everybody.
And she was terrific in this.
Yeah.
This is a fact-based biopicture telling the story of the life of war correspondent Marie Colvin, who was a war correspondent who would basically do whatever it took to get the story, and would go into these incredibly dangerous situations in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Sri Lanka, Syria. And it tells a story of someone who is sort of walking a very fine line between being courageous and reckless.
Yeah. She did lose her eye.
Yeah, she didn't completely lose it, but she lost a lot of the function in it. But you have somebody who ends up, essentially engaging in her own private war, as the title suggests, with kind of the conundrum that she had to deal with in terms of hating what she does and loving what she does. It's this battle within her that, as much as she hates going to these places and seeing the carnage that's going on, she also knows that she can't stop, that she has to go. She has to tell the story. She has to speak for people who don't have a voice otherwise.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just a very touching and very moving sort of film, and especially made possible by the performance of Rosamund Pike. I mean, this is somebody who I can't believe has been overlooked pretty much for awards recognition. Her performance is so strong, and just watching the way this film was made, just how physically demanding this part had to be when she went into all these locations that were the recreations of the war sites. I mean, I can only imagine how exhausted she must have been every day after she was done filming.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I guess, like, we've talked about this before, when a movie comes out, the timing of when a movie comes out, if you remember it, you don't remember it. But there were so many movies this year. And, like, okay, one movie that's not on your list that I think I loved, I mean, I loved, was Black Klansman. Like, I thought that,
Black Klansman came close to making my cut. It didn't get into the top 10, but it was pretty close. So,
yeah, I mean, it's not as physical like A Private War, but it was just such a great movie, and wonderful to see a son follow a father, and it just, wow, loved it.
One thing I'd like to add for listeners and viewers is the fact that I wrote a blog about all the top and bottom 10 movies that's on my website at BrentMarchant.com. You can find a link to it. In that link, you'll find write-ups of all the top and bottom 10 films, as well as like my list of honorable mentions. And I did a separate category also for documentaries, because I think it's kind of an apples to oranges sort of thing when you're trying to combine documentaries with feature films. So.
Speaking of documentaries, did everybody catch the CNN, the one about the triplets the other day that they showed the other night? I know that you've written about it before, and you saw it before, Brent.
Three Identical Strangers.
Three Identical Strangers, but that is a phenomenal documentary.
It really is, and I was really disappointed to see that film didn't get nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary. That was criminal in my mind, but
yeah, it was wonderfully done, just amazing. Yeah. Okay, back to our list. Can You Ever Forgive Me? Wow, what a role for Melissa McCarthy.
Number 5, we have Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is, I think in many ways, it's going to be a breakthrough role for Melissa McCarthy. She's always done fine comedic work, but she's shown in this film that she's got a much wider range than I think has been apparent prior to this point. It tells the story of a down on her luck writer who ends up building a new career for herself by forging literary letters. In a very scoundrel-esque kind of little scheme that she develops.
Her best work.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is one of those films that straddles the line between comedy and drama, and she pulls off both so well in this film. It's beautifully written, which I really appreciate, because it's a movie about writing.
Yes.
And to see a film that is well written about good writing is something that I really appreciate. And she's also accompanied on this journey by a wonderful little scoundrel played by Richard E. Grant, who did a fine performance as somebody who helps to fence her work for her. And both of them have picked up Oscar nominations for their performances, and very deservedly so. I mean, this is a charming and funny and just warm film that also makes you realize, unfortunately, crime doesn't pay. So
yeah. Well, on my list, I don't have one that kind of, I guess, goes with it, but I'm kind of surprised that I don't see Crazy Rich Asians on this list, because that was a fun movie.
Well, I like Crazy Rich Asians, but I thought it was rather formula. That was my only complaint with it.
Yeah, but it's the first Asian movie.
Yeah.
Really. And it was really well done, like really well done.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah. Okay, I'll let you. I have others. I have others, and so do you. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Let me go back to my share list. Oh, coming up, The Favorite.
Yes, at number 4, we have The Favorite, movie, which I I laughed my behind off from start to finish watching this movie. Um, it's a story of uh, the capricious Queen Anne during her reign in England, and the two ladies in waiting who are both sort of vying to be her favorite. Has three absolutely outstanding performances with Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz, who are all vying for the Queen's attention. It is a little dark.
Yes.
That's one thing that some people may find a little troubling about it, but it's also got some of the most outrageous lines I've heard in a film. I mean, and also a lot of very funny situational
Yes.
comedy where there's no there's no punchline associated with what's going on, but you're looking at what's happening and you can't help but laugh. I mean,
And Olivia Colman, man, the way she delivered the lines were just incredible. She was
yeah.
phenomenal in this movie. She really was. She made the movie.
Well, I'm really happy to see that she's getting recognition for this part too, because, she's very much a journeyman performer who has played a lot of, solid supporting roles over the years, and has just never really gotten the recognition that she deserves. And now she's finally getting a chance to shine. And she seems to be making making the best of all of it. I mean, when she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy, you could tell when she was giving her acceptance speech on stage that she was just so delighted and so happy to have made this film to begin with, but then to be recognized the way that she was for on top of it. It was just making her day. So, I would definitely go see this. Although for anybody who's easily offended, I would say, well, you probably want to stay away from this one then, because you might find it a little bit offensive. So
yeah, just a touch. That's okay though. All right, now this one is on TV right now, because I remember seeing it the other night and saying to my husband, "Oh, you probably want to watch this one." Coming up is First Reformed.
Yes, at number 3 we have First Reformed, which was, in my opinion, probably the best on-screen performance that Ethan Hawke has ever given, and I'm really disappointed to see that he has not received more recognition for it. It tells the story of a very troubled minister who is going through a number of issues in his life and trying to resolve his feelings about that, not only in terms of how they affect him personally, but also in terms of how they affect like his connection to the divine. So you see somebody who's going through a very troubled time, and it involves any number of things from his health to his drinking to his the parish that he's trying to manage, which is on a place. It's a historic parish that's having trouble staying afloat financially and so forth. And he just gives such a stellar performance in this film that it's captivating to watch. Now, it's the kind of film that evokes a lot of very powerful emotions, and that you might actually even feel viscerally as you're watching it. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy watch at times, but it's kind of like one of those films that you can't look away from once you start watching it.
Yeah,
this was written and directed by Paul Schrader, who wrote the screenplay originally for Taxi Driver back in the 70s.
Not another movie.
Yeah, so so you can tell just from that it's got a very powerful pedigree behind it. So this is a very good film, but don't be prepared to think you're going to chuckle your way through it or anything like that. It's a very emotional watch.
Okay. I have Old Man and a Gun on my list. I thought that was a really sweet film.
Yeah, I like that too. Again, I had trouble limiting it to 10. So
I know.
I really loved Robert Redford's performance in that film.
He was fun. He was so fun to watch because he was such a sweet, sweet old man.
Well, some critics were rather critical of it, saying that, if this is going to be your swan song film, I mean, why did you pick something that's such a light touch? But, I thought it really brought out some of the sweetness and the humanity that you didn't necessarily always see from Redford in a lot of his other performances.
And it's like he's a con man. I mean, but he's a sweet con man.
Yeah.
And he's breaking the law, and he's not making any apologies for it. And yet, here we go. That's okay, because I'm having a good time doing it.
Yeah.
And what the heck? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, you really love this movie, and I really love this movie too. And I think it's my husband's maybe favorite movie of this year, and that's The Green Book.
Yes, at number 2 we have The Green Book, which to me was a much better film than I was expecting when I went in to see it. Tells the story of an African American pianist and an Italian American driver who go on a road trip together through the American South in the early 1960s. So you're dealing with characters who are kind of like almost oil and water to begin with when they start out their journey, but when they go through this trip that's full of trials and tribulations, they end up developing a very strong bond with one another, where they have each other's backs and help each other grow as individuals and help each other stay safe and protected through this journey that's in very questionable territory in many ways. And it's based on a true story, and it's based, it ended up being where the characters themselves became lifelong friends after their trip together, which was something that, again, you wouldn't necessarily expect to see when the film starts out. But wonderful performances by Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. They're both nominated for Oscars. Mahershala Ali has been winning everything under the sun so far in the supporting actor category. I mean, he won an Oscar a few years ago for Moonlight in a supporting role, and he was very good in that. But as good as he was there, he's that much better.
Oh gosh, yeah, I have to agree with you. And I think what's interesting about this film is it shows in some ways the difference between book smarts and street smarts.
Yes.
And Viggo Mortensen's character, not so smart, book wise, but he gets, he's quick on his feet when it comes to street smarts and protecting this guy. And I mean, I found out myself personally moving from Canada to Louisville on the first day of desegregation in high school. What that was all about. But I still had no idea that there was a Green Book, and that the Green Book actually told the African Americans where they could stay.
Yes.
And here's the restaurants you can eat in, and here's the hotels you can stay at, and these are the things that you can do. And of course, in the Green Book, in this movie, and I don't, Viggo as a driver, he had no idea that this book existed either. And, he's like, hey, we're just going to stay here. And it's interesting how, Mahershala as a pianist is giving this beautiful performances and these lovely spots, places that he would never be allowed to stay or eat in or walk into had he not been the entertainment.
Exactly.
I just don't understand. It's like, it boggles the mind how people are. Or were. I can still say are, but yeah.
Well, I think one of the scenes that's particularly reflective of that is where he's giving the concert at one place, and at the intermission he goes to use the restroom, and he goes to walk into the indoor restroom at the place where he's playing, and he's told he can't go in there, that he needs to use the restroom out back, which is an outhouse. It just
and this is a guy who's like very just very particular about his he's very
very refined and erudite, and asking someone to do something like that, I mean, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing is, this wasn't all that long ago.
No,
this was the early 60s, which really was not that far in the past. So, and
we're seeing signs of it again. I mean, look at Jesse Smollett yesterday getting attacked. Like, that just boggles the mind. Like, how is this possible? Why are people doing that? Because he's gay? Because he's black? Is it both? Like, what the heck? Just similar to this character, really. But talk about a guy with, just more talent in his little finger than most of us will ever have. Crazy.
Yeah, I recommend this movie highly. It's nominated for Best Picture. I hope it wins. I don't know if it's going to or not, but it's certainly worthy of whatever accolades it's received. It did win the National Board of Review and the Golden Globe Award for Best Picture. So it's got a lot of fans out there, and I hope it comes through with the big prize as well.
Well, what I think what's glaringly missing from your list is A Star Is Born, because I really thought that was a great movie. It's being snubbed, but I thought it was a great movie.
I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a great movie. I really liked Lady Gaga's performance in the film.
Yes.
And
that's why I think it's a great movie.
And I really liked Sam Elliott's performance in the film.
Yes.
I was a little underwhelmed by Bradley Cooper. The more of his movies I see, the more I begin to see that he's kind of a one-note actor in a lot of ways. I mean, he's very good at what he does, but he plays very much the same kind of role from movie to movie.
But let's look at him as the director in this movie. Let's look at him as the guy who got Lady Gaga ready to perform in this movie, to sing in this movie. You know, that he's actually out there singing this song with her, and I think that's pretty amazing. Like that's a hat trick in a way in my book.
Well, and the other thing with this film is, and this may not be a fair criticism, but with this being the fourth time this story has been made into a film, to me, the story has got to keep evolving. It's got to do something new and a little different. And to me, this film was very much in the same vein as the version that was made in the 70s with Barbra Streisand and Kris Kristofferson. That version of the story really evolved quite a bit from the one that preceded it with Judy Garland and James Mason. So, I mean, to me, if you're going to redo it again, you need to make another leap in terms of the way you take the story. And I really didn't feel as though they did that.
Okay, fair enough.
So that was my main criticism with that. But I was very happy to see the performance of Lady Gaga. I think she has kind of written her own ticket now in terms of
she was incredible.
Whatever she wants to do on screen. I think she'll be able to get the opportunity to do it because she was
agreed. Okay, your top number one, Annihilation.
Yes, this is a movie that
I never even heard of it.
Well, I really kind of, I have a soft spot for this film because I think it sort of got shafted by the way it was marketed. It came out in the window between Black Panther and Avengers.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
The timing.
A little bit of overshadowing.
Yep, the timing was really off. And it didn't really get the kind of promotional push that I think it needed to get. This is a movie that's in a genre that's called smart horror. It's sort of a new emerging genre now, where the film has many of the elements of a horror film, which, as you and listeners are probably well aware of, I'm not a huge fan of horror.
No, me neither.
But it's got such an intelligence about it that there are many things that work into this that have to do with spirituality, metaphysics, and giving you a much, much, much deeper understanding of what's going on and why it's going on. And it's beautifully shot. I mean, if you have a chance to see this, see it on as big a screen as possible. It features wonderful performances by Natalie Portman. And it was made by the same director who made the film Ex Machina a couple of years ago, which was also a wonderful science fiction movie. The one thing that I'm really grateful for is that since it's gone to DVD now, it is beginning to find quite an audience in the home viewing market. Okay. I think it's turning out to be much more successful there than it was actually in theaters. The unfortunate part about that is if you're watching it at home, you're probably seeing it on a computer screen or a TV screen or something like that. And to really fully appreciate the beauty of this film, you really do need to see it on a big screen. So
I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah. When you went home after this movie, did you think about it for days and days?
Yes.
Okay.
Days and days.
Days and days? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really did because, I've only seen it once and I would love to watch it again because I'm sure there's probably a lot more that I would pick up the next time around. But when I saw it, I was just blown away by the profound nature of this film, which I really was not expecting going in. I mean, I thought it was going to be, kind of an okay science fiction movie, but there was just so much here that it's one of these movies that you will just leave such an impression on you that you can't forget it.
Because I felt like that after Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
And that's not on your list either. And I think that was
it's in the honorable mentions.
Okay. It really is my favorite movie. Like I fell in love with that movie. I fell in love like really hard. I just thought it was just amazing, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for days and days. And it wasn't that I loved Queen that much, which I do love Queen, but I just thought that Rami's performance was incredible. I thought that just the whole thing just made me think about life and about, you know, what would you leave behind? What is your legacy? Just all of that, you know?
Yep. No,
Yeah.
it was a wonderful film. Again, you know, when you're limited to 10,
I know.
sometimes it gets to be hard to, you know, cut the list down. And, you know, that was one of the things about 2018 in general, is the fact that 2018 was a very good year for film. I mean, I can't remember, probably goes back a good 5 or 6 years since we've had a year that had as many good releases as 2018 did. It started out a little bit slow, but then it came on really strong once award season started, where there were just so many good films that were worth seeing.
Yeah. All right. So we got to make up some time here. Let me see. Where's my bottom?
Well, and going to the bottom, we don't have to spend as much time on them because
we don't have to talk about them that much.
The ones I'm going to really recommend you go see. So.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on here. Let me go back and do my share. Am I sharing with you guys right now?
No.
Now I am. Okay. Okay. Overlord.
Okay. So we're starting at again, working backwards. Number 10, we have Overlord, which was a film that came out around Halloween. It was a film that had kind of an interesting idea, but didn't really pull it off all that well. It was trying to be sort of a horror film set during World War II. And unfortunately, it could never quite really make up its mind if it wanted to be a horror movie, or if it wanted to be a World War II movie, or if it wanted to be kind of an over-the-top campy romp. And unfortunately, it didn't really do any of them particularly well. I mean, I thought it worked best when it was a campy romp, but that didn't really start working its way in until like the last, say, 30 minutes or so. So I had to sit through
J.J. Abrams, I mean.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Is that, I mean, usually he picks his projects a little better than this.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to sit through a lot of really pretty boring stuff to get to the point where I started to enjoy it. So, you know, if they had focused a little more carefully on what it was they were trying to do with it, I think it would have been a much better picture.
Okay. Now this one, The Happy Prince.
Yes,
should have been good.
Yeah, number 9. I was really looking forward to seeing this one when I saw the trailer for it. It's a story about Oscar Wilde, and you know, the thing that really surprised me about it when I came out of the theater was, how is it that you can take a character as colorful and witty as Oscar Wilde and make him boring? And that's exactly what they did here. It was telling the story of Oscar Wilde in the last few years of his life after he had gotten out of jail, and it explores the sort of the continuing unhappiness he's experiencing in the latter part of his life, which is, I mean, really very much a downer. It didn't really give you much of a sense of who he had been when he was at the pinnacle of his career. It really didn't bring out the wit and warmth and wisdom of a lot of his writing and his stage performances. I just felt it was a kind of a missed opportunity.
Okay. Oh, okay. Isle of the Dogs.
Yeah, this was another one that I was
movie.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it. I know Wes Anderson is a very creative director in many ways, and I was very impressed with the lineup of voiceover artists he got to do this film, but I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
In terms of what the story was he was trying to tell, it seemed a little too strange, almost as if it was just trying to be, you know, impressed with its own quirkiness to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it paints a rather disparaging picture of the Japanese, which is where the story is set. I didn't quite get that. I mean, my feeling was, what are you really trying to say here?
Is it about animal cruelty? Is it about, like, I didn't get it. Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people loved it because of the animation, which I mean, I can't take anything away from it on that front. But in terms of the fact that it just didn't really have a story that I felt really compelled to want to see, you know, that it just didn't work for me.
I wish I could remember all the movies I didn't like, but I can't remember them. But one I'm still like going, did I like it or didn't I like it? Was Mary Poppins. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I liked it or not.
I was not really expecting much from that going into it, but I came away from it enjoying it more than I thought I was going to. So,
well, I loved her performance. Like, I loved the performance, but the songs weren't as catchy, nowhere near as memorable as the first one, and it seemed darker, not as
well, I think
friendly. It took a long time to get into.
I thought I thought it was a little bit darker, but then again, I don't know that you could really make a kind of film like you made with the original Mary Poppins today and have kids find it credible or believable. I think it had to be a little more quote unquote realistic. And as far as the music was concerned, no, it definitely was not as catchy as the original film, but I thought that the numbers were definitely catchier than a lot of other more recent movie musicals. I really did, for example, like the song "Where the Lost Things Go."
Yes, yeah, that was the best song.
I thought that was really very touching.
Yeah.
And I really loved Emily Blunt's performance. I mean,
yeah.
in terms of
she did an incredible job. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, taking on an iconic character is a really risky proposition, and yet to do it as well as she did, and to pay proper homage to the part, I really have to give her a lot of credit. And I'm really sorry to see that she was not nominated for an Oscar for performance. I think she got shafted on that one.
Oh, I know what movie was the worst movie I ever saw this year, and it was it Alone? Is it called Alone? The one about the astronaut.
Oh, First Man.
First Man. Yeah, not my favorite movie.
Yeah, that came close to making my bottom 10 list. It didn't.
Oh my God, that was the most boring movie I ever went to in my life.
Pretty close. So.
Really boring. Okay, Suspiria. Now I happen to like Tilda Swinton. I think she's pretty cool. She might be in a little bit of weird movies, and you know, Chloe Grace Moretz she's really coming along in lots of different movies.
Well, the thing with this movie is that it starts out rather slow, and then
what's the premise?
It's a remake of a horror movie that was made in the 1970s about the story of a young woman who becomes involved with a modern dance troupe that is run by some rather unusual people who appear to be, you know, witches or demon worshippers or something along those lines. And as the movie starts to pick up speed and go along, it starts getting better. And I was noticed that when I was watching it, then I was thinking, okay, maybe it started slow, but it's definitely on the right trajectory here.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of builds up to a point where you really expect in the final act that it's really going to give you, you know, the big answer, the big reveal for what all this has been leading up to. And in the final act, it just falls apart. It just goes completely over the top and out of bounds, and ends up being this really sort of grotesque bloodbath of sorts.
Oh my God.
I'm watching this and going, what the hell is this? I was really disappointed because I really thought there was going to be a payoff, and there really wasn't. And you know, I guess if you can appreciate a film for partially helping to build up your hopes, you'll enjoy it. But you know, if that's all it's got to offer, then it ends up in my bottom 10 list. So
okay, now Widows didn't like, with Rotten Tomatoes, they kind of liked Widows.
Yeah, a lot of people did kind of like Widows, and I think to a certain degree some of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people really like the films made by this particular director, Steve McQueen, who a couple of years ago made 12 Years a Slave.
Mm-hmm.
Widows,
I like Viola Davis too. I always like her. So
Widows, to me, I mean, I liked it more than 12 Years a Slave, but the thing with Widows is that I just found the story in many ways to be completely implausible. I wasn't buying it. It just seemed to be requiring a greater stretch of the imagination than I was willing to give it.
Okay.
It basically tells the story of a crime heist and political thriller saga set in Chicago, which has a great cast and unfortunately really was not used to nearly the best of their abilities or the best of their talents. Um, I really kind of surprised that Viola Davis chose to do a movie like this, because she usually picks her scripts a lot better than this one. But with that
And maybe she
said,
did it based on the director. It could have been.
yeah, that could be. I mean, this really did have a wonderful cast. I mean, Viola Davis, Colin Farrell, Robert Duvall, they were all wonderful in this film. But the story itself was just, full
Like,
of
if I
holes.
look at the casting, I'm just saying Michelle Rodriguez doesn't belong. Like, she just didn't seem to me to be somebody who would be in that. And I get it why, but yeah, I guess maybe, in my mind, she's kind of stuck in the Fast Car movie. She's real tough lesbian character usually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's her real life character. Let's talk about her.
Well, it's as I say, the big problem with this film is the premise. It just left.
Yeah.
I just wasn't buying it. I just felt that, like, too many plot holes, too many implausibilities. I'll skip it.
Yeah. Okay. And I can't read what this next one is, so you better tell us.
Oh, it's Steven Spielberg's latest film. It's called Ready Player One.
Oh, Ready Player One.
Is I think sort of like Spielberg's attempt at trying to recapture some of the glory days of his films from the 80s, like E.T. and Close Encounters and so forth.
Now, a lot of people like this movie.
A lot of people did. I found it exhausting to watch. The special effects and action sequences are so relentless that it just left me tired by the time I got out of the film. Maybe I'm just getting old, but
yeah, maybe.
I just didn't feel as though it really, it didn't really speak to me that much. The thing that also got me about this film was the fact that it's set in the year 2045. It's about a young guy who goes into a virtual reality game to try and, take on an evil hero or an evil villain and so forth. And the setting that he goes into is filled with 80s references. Now, it's kind of nostalgic and kind of quaint. And I can see where probably a lot of viewers will think back to, the days of Spielberg's heyday when he was really making movies with these kinds of images and things in them. But to me, there was also a very basic disconnect in terms of, why would somebody living in 2045 be so fascinated with things of the 80s?
Yeah.
I
hear you on that one.
Didn't quite get that one.
But it's kind of like when you what's the one with with Groot and those guys, of the universe, Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's always listening to that music.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a big fan of Guardians either, so. But the thing with Ready Player One is that in many ways it's very typical of a lot of the films that Spielberg has been making in recent years, where it's kind of big and bloated, need of editing, need of toning down, just kind of get it back to a manageable standard, as it were.
Okay, Collette, Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
I love Keira Knightley. What was wrong with this
too. One? Number 4 on the worst list, we have Collette, which is a film biography of the famous French writer Collette, which I know Collette had kind of a colorful lifestyle that was not exactly mainstream, but the way this comes across is it's played almost like watching a tawdry novel on screen. I just kind of sat there watching and going,
does she ever take a break?
Yeah, I mean, this really just doesn't seem correct for a period piece.
Yeah.
Keira Knightley does give a good performance. I think that there were a number of people who at the start of award season were thinking that she had a shot maybe in an acting nomination for this, but the movie was just, in my opinion, too trashy, to really deserve that kind of recognition. So,
oh, that's too bad. She got a new movie coming up shortly.
Yes,
looks kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing it anyway. Okay, The Rider. Now,
Okay.
I know why you put this movie there.
Yeah, this one was sort of a darling at the Independent Spirit Awards last year. I mean, it picked up 5 nominations, and
I wonder why. Do you think it is because they're a real family, possibly, who acted in this? Um,
it could be.
yeah,
I know that they were also very big fans of the director, who
okay,
was a Chinese American woman, and they thought, ooh, how interesting is that a Chinese American woman would be making a movie about an American rodeo rider?
yeah.
Well, okay, I mean that's kind of novel, I guess, but by the same token, does that necessarily
This
make
was the most depressing movie I've ever seen.
and
Almost.
and to me also one of the most cliched movies I've ever seen. I mean, that's the other thing that really got me was a lot of the people from the Independent Spirit Awards seemed to be very impressed with how quote unquote original and cutting edge it was. And I was watching this and saying, this is like full of almost every Western cliche you've ever seen.
And I think again, it's because they're not actors. They're just a family.
Yeah.
They're just a family who, with the sister with autism it was depressing. It was slow as heck, and I had a real hard time getting through it.
Well, and also the fact that, I mean, it just seemed to be celebrating a lot of very kind of outmoded macho ideals too, which to me it was just like, oh, come on, this is 2018. I mean,
yeah, I agree. That one I agree with. Now, when I went to see, it was so funny because we're talking the very first movie that we looked at, If Beale Street Could Talk. So behind me are these 2 women, and they're going, "Oh, we have to go see Roma next." And I'm like, I turn around and go, "Well, according to my movie critic, you don't want to go see it, and it's on Netflix, so save your money." So here I am giving movie advice to the people behind me. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing my lack of recommendation with them. Yeah, I know I'm going to probably catch hell for this one because
a lot of people like it.
Everybody just seems to be falling all over themselves in terms of how much they love this one. But despite the fact that it is exquisite to look at, it's beautifully filmed in black and white. I came away from this saying, I'm sorry, but the emperor is naked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just.
Well, that's what I say about your president every day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There is just really nothing particularly compelling or interesting to make me want to sit through and watch this movie. I mean, unexplained characters in a rather unexplained and rather uninteresting story.
Tell me why we care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a semi-autobiographical film for the director, and it was obviously a very personally passionate and important project to him, and that's fine. But essentially, you're watching sort of a fictionalized version of home movies. And, home movies are still home movies, even if they're beautifully filmed.
Yeah.
They may be important to you, but they're not necessarily going to be important to anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's really the impression I got with this film. As I say, it is beautiful to look at, but that's about where it ends. And it's just been getting all kinds of attention that I don't think it deserves.
Okay.
And and even the title is really not very well explained. I mean, when you hear Roma, you think Italy.
Italy, yeah.
And yet Roma is actually an upper middle class neighborhood in Mexico City.
Okay.
So who would necessarily connect Mexico
with
a film with a title like Roma unless you knew that specifically about that neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was about Italy.
That, to me, that in of itself shows the lack of context and the lack of backstory that plagues this picture from start to finish. And that's a big part of the reason why I think, why watch it? Unless you really know. It's as if the director is saying to the audience, trust me, this is authentic. Believe me, that's all you have to do. Well, I'm sorry, but I need a little more to go on than just some kind of assurance that, yes, it's trying to be authentic.
Okay, well, your last one here, another horror movie, Don't Leave Home.
Yes, and the title certainly says it all.
Yeah, an Irish urban legend. What was the urban legend?
Yeah, this film said it was kind of an Irish urban legend with like religious and metaphysical and spiritual overtones connected with it. Kind of a goth sort of sensibility in terms of the way it was filmed and so forth. And it committed cardinal sin number one, where horror movies are, in the fact that it wasn't the least bit scary.
Oh, really?
It was boring as anything.
Oh, okay. A horror movie I could watch.
Yeah. Well, you could, but you
wouldn't want to.
No, I mean, you'd probably want to have a pillow handy just in case you started nodding off, because it was really that dull.
Well, tell us the premise.
Yeah, I mean, I kept waiting for something to happen, and when something finally did, I'm like,
you didn't jump.
That's all, really? So yes,
who's in this movie? Anybody that we know?
Don't recommend this one.
No, nobody that we know. So okay, so what's this urban legend about?
It's about a young girl who disappears mysteriously,
mm-hmm.
and the priest who is responsible for, I believe, helping to baptize her is very traumatized after she makes this disappearance, as if somehow he seems to feel he's responsible for the disappearance. And many years later, apparently, a young artist starts making a diorama of various haunting scenes, and includes the story behind this one. And people want to meet her. And when she goes to the place where this all unfolds, she sort of gets caught up in trying to discover the mystery behind how, how and why all this took place.
Okay.
And you keep expecting that it's going to lead to something revelatory and deep and profound, and it never does.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So there you got it, folks. The top 10 films according to Brent and Frankie, and the worst films according to Brent. And, pick and choose whatever you want to go see, but go see movies, support the films, support your actors, support this amazing, wonderful, creative genre of, I just love movies. Like Brent and I love the movies. We go to see the movies. I'm sure you go, Brent, like I do every week, and sometimes we go Saturday and Sunday, and
Friday.
Yeah, I just love the movies. Just love them, and that's why we're doing this. But like I said, some of these are already on Netflix. You don't even have to pay for them anymore. But I agree with you. There are some movies you must see in a venue that has a huge screen. Just everything comes, like Life of Pi was one of those movies.
Yes.
I loved Life of Pi. People who saw it on the TV didn't get it, but when you see it cinematically and you see the cinematography and just everything comes together on the big screen, and you just see this beautiful movie. Like, I loved it. It's my favorite movie, just about.
And as I said earlier, again, if you want to find out more about these films and you want to find out who my honorable mentions were and my documentary list, just go to BrentMarchant.com and click on the link for the best and worst of 2018 link, and you'll see all that extra information.
Yeah, and I can tell you from my own experience that if you do read, Brent's reviews of movies, or you listen to these reviews of movies, and you go and see these movies, you will not be disappointed. You will be seeing great movies or missing horrible movies. So don't worry about that. Either way, we got you covered. Well, thank you, Brent.
My pleasure.
This is a kind of our, I guess, our lead in to the Oscar season. We're going to be doing our predictions again this year.
I'll be back in a few weeks, and I'll have my predictions for who the winners are going to be in the top 6 categories.
And I want to know who you think the winners should be. So just email me at, Coach Picasso at Rogers.com, or come on here and leave us a message on the Good Media Network site on Facebook, and let us know who you think should be winning the Oscars, and we can play along together. Anyway, thanks. Have a great day. We will see you later, Facebook friends. I'm going to sign off here. Okay, and we're going to stop recording.